Good afternoon. Welcome to the forecast discussion for February 11th, 2014. It's currently 1 p.m. We have a lot to talk about, so let's just get right to it. Guess what? We have Arctic air in place. Been like that all winter. Not going to end, at least not till this week, with temperatures ranging from the mid to upper teens over the interior, lower 20s over New York City metropolitan area, and lower to mid 20s over the Philadelphia metropolitan area. We have winds from the northwest and from the north at around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting to 25 miles per hour at times. In other words, it's cold outside. This is a very important observation here. I'm going to tell you why. This cold air does not like to leave very quickly. It puts up a fight. We've seen this all winter. It's kind of like Rocky. It just keeps on getting up and fighting back. So, with this upcoming storm, we better take that into consideration when looking at all these models. So let's dive into what's actually happening here. Let's get into the observations. On the radar, and I've been studying this since 2 o'clock this morning. We have a very, very interesting setup here. And I want you to look at the national radar for one very, very important reason. We don't even have the storm developing yet, and yet we have all of this moisture just brewing down here along the Gulf Coast. In fact, the WPC, basically the National Weather Service, or NOAA, has pointed this out as well, and it's concerning. Do we really have a handle on this storm? Do the models really understand the dynamics that are going on here? We have Arctic air in place, just kind of sitting there. It's fresh, it's new, we have snowpack, so this cold air is not going to be just given away very easily. And we have a ton of moisture brewing here in the Gulf of Mexico. And we have a very active Pacific jet, which I'll show on the water vapor satellite picture in a moment. Here's one disturbance. There's another disturbance over the west coast, which we can move here. It's starting to move in. We have a lot of energy in the atmosphere, a lot of moisture, and plenty of cold air. That spells trouble. Now, on the infrared satellite picture, you can see we have our Arctic boundary basically setting up down towards Florida. Even you guys who tried to escape winter in Florida, fail. Didn't happen this year. Unless you're down in Orlando where it's 80 degrees. What are you going to do? Notice the cloud tops here. You see these yellows here? That means there's enhanced lifting going on here. And again, let me stress, this storm hasn't even started to develop yet. The reason why I really want to point this out is that this illustrates the strength of the thermal gradient that's in place over the southeast and up the east coast. And I think that's going to play a huge role in this upcoming storm in determining the track and the intensity. When I say determining the track and intensity, I think we all agree it's going to be a strong storm. The track of this storm, and we're only talking about 20, 30 miles, is going to be incredibly important to determine who gets what and how much, which I'll show on the forecast I have out currently in place. But you can see, I want to stress to everyone today the importance of understanding what we have involved here. We have a storm set up on Thursday that is going to be interacting with Arctic air, a ton of moisture, and a lot of energy in the atmosphere. And this is kind of what I would call a thread the needle type storm. And I'm going to show you what I mean on the water vapor satellite picture. This pattern is not optimal for a easy forecast for a major winter storm. I have some blocking in the Atlantic. The Pacific pattern is convoluted. This jet has been concerning me all the time because of slight push more to the east than what the guidance is showing right now. But it basically shifted just enough last night to allow that ridge to pump up to allow this whole storm system to set up. But this is the type of storm that I call a pattern changing storm. Okay, it's kind of a hallmark, a warning sign. Like, hey, the pattern's about to change, and this is one last shot, one last powerful burst of energy before the pattern starts to collapse. That's what I think we're dealing with here. And storms like this tend to be very dynamic and very powerful, and they really don't show their true strength and their true capability as far as the track and speed until it's about 24 hours out. So this is why I've been very hesitant in putting out snow maps and making declarative statements and putting out model snow maps of 40 inches, 10 inches, 2 inches. The reason why is that this type of situation has a lot of volatility involved in it. But you can kind of see the players involved here. Here's one disturbance, here's two disturbances, here's another disturbance, here's one out in the Pacific. This one has to be watched for Friday night to Saturday. Yes, I said it, Friday night into Saturday. Let's deal with this storm first, though. We have a ton of lifting already developing with plenty of moisture. We're starting to get a little bit of a connection from the Pacific here as well. And when this storm really gets cranky, it'll get moisture influence from the tropical Pacific, from the Atlantic, and the Gulf of Mexico. So this storm will have plenty of moisture, has plenty of cold air. Now it's a question of how they interact and what the storm track is going to be. So I'm going to show you a couple models here. We'll do the GFS first. So basically the focus here, again, with this storm is that the storm tracks up the East Coast. Now, this has my intention here. Because the whole idea here is that this high pressure system ahead of the storm exits out. And so you get a nice northeasterly wind. Therefore, I'm just trying to say easterly wind, therefore it warms up the coastal plain. This has my attention now, especially this right here. I'm going to tell you why. All winter long, we've seen this cold air put up a heck of a fight, right? Now I'm seeing this high pressure system around Quebec. Now, it's not perfect, but this year it doesn't have to be perfect, apparently, to keep this cold air locked in. And it's a dense, slow-moving Arctic air mass. So then when I see this, with 850 millibar temperatures warming up, kind of has me a little concerned here about ice. So this storm is far more complicated than what we think. I think I'm coming to that conclusion. It's not a perfect storm. It's not a situation where it's going to be easy to forecast because everything's thread the needle here, okay? This disturbance has to tilt at just the right time, and it's being tilted because of this disturbance up here. So what we have to assume here is that this disturbance is being modeled correctly to basically force this disturbance to go negative, because the pattern overall really is marginal as far as support. We really don't have a strong negative NAO pattern. We certainly do not have a very favorable Pacific pattern. We have a very weak ridge here that's being beaten down, and plenty of energy coming in that in most circumstances would kick this storm out into the Atlantic. Let's say 9 times out of 10. Unfortunately, this is the one time it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But when I see this type of setup, and I see this type of setup, and the fact that we have cold air in place, kind of makes you pause for a bit. Now this storm, well, I'm going to go over the timing of the storm in just a moment, but basically, looking at early Thursday morning, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., and continuing on, or should I say 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., and then continuing on through the day on Thursday, ending early Friday. Now, this disturbance here is another thing to watch out for the weekend. Right now, it looks like it's a little bit too progressive, and for now, I'm going with scattered snow showers. If we go with the Canadian model guidance, so check this out. This just amps up another storm. Not buying it just yet. I think this is a little bit overdone here, but I think the GFS is too weak. So we kind of went in between here with scattered snow showers for Saturday, for Friday, and for Saturday. So this winter doesn't want to quit until the very end, which looks like to be around the 20th. So this storm heading up is one that's going to be very complicated. And one thing that I kind of am really concerned about at the end of the storm, early Friday morning around 1 a.m., is that we get a nice deformation zone set up over the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area, enhancing snowfall totals. So there's a lot of little features here, mesoscale features that you can't forecast right now, that are starting to pop up and make me a little bit concerned with this storm. So here's the going forecast. If you are right along the coast, let's say Cape May, the southeast shores of Long Island, because of the track of the storm basically cutting up this way and out, you're going to have a lot of warm air invading it. So I'm looking at snow changing over to rain, up to 2 inches of snow possible. And that's at the extreme coastal areas. You go a little bit further north and west, much of eastern Canada, eastern Connecticut, central Long Island, back towards southern New Jersey. That's my 2 to 4 inch zone, zone 2, see right here. Again, snow mixing with sleet and then freezing rain, followed by rain. I think ice in this area is up to 1/10 of an inch. Then we go to zone 3, and this is where I think it's going to be very interesting and dangerous. Because I think there's going to be a really significant battle here between the Atlantic air mass that with that low pressure system and the Arctic air with a snowpack in place trying to give way. And we've seen this before where the models don't really handle this very well until the very day of the storm. And I'm getting that feeling again, considering what we're dealing with, and with that high pressure system, again, kind of popping up here. Really wasn't well defined beforehand in the models. Now it's just kind of showing up here a little bit more defined. It's something to definitely consider and take into account with this storm. So in zone 3, I'm going 4 to 8 inches of wet snow, then a prolonged period of sleet and freezing rain, 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch of ice possible here. There is a chance that this will not go over to rain in these areas. I'm not convinced of it yet, but if this cold air hangs on, that high pressure system over Quebec is a little stronger, that's a concern. Another concern I have is that considering what we have here with the water vapor, right here, that the whole system itself is shifted 25 miles east. And if the storm is shifted 25 miles east, then what you end up with is all this area shifted east towards the coast. So you end up with a heavier snowfall. This ends up being all snow rather than a mix over the rain. So this aspect here is kind of like my high volatility zone. Depending on how the setup evolves here, there's a good chance that we end up with far more snowfall here than what I have here at 4 to 8 inches. Less ice, more snow. How much snow? We go to zone 4. Again, zone 4 also has high volatility. Right now, looking at 8 to 12 inches, locally up to 16. I would not be surprised if someone pushes 2 feet somewhere in this area. Let me be blunt here. The reason why I'm concerned about the potential for 2 feet here is that we're going to be dealing with this aspect of the storm. A deformation zone. And with the deformation zone setting up, that could lead to enhanced snowfall and thus the potential for snowfall amounts above what I'm forecasting here. So there's a lot of volatility in play. The one thing I can't say for sure, coastal flooding is going to be a problem right along the coast here and over Long Island with this storm. Winds will be 20 to 30 miles per hour, gusting over 40 miles per hour. So there's going to be wind threats as well, which means power outages. Start time again, I like between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. on Thursday. End time between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Friday. Worst conditions 5 a.m. Thursday through 1 a.m. Friday. This is pretty much locked in. I like this. But as far as the details on what to expect, this is the ballpark that I have right now. I'm staying with this forecast right now, but I would not be surprised if I'm making changes late tonight, depending on what I'm seeing, not only with the models, but more importantly, what I'm seeing right here. If I start to see this being more enhanced and the support for this low pressure system track a little bit further out, about 20 miles, then we're going to be making some major adjustments to this forecast. That is your forecast discussion for today. Of course, I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Follow the latest weather information at nynjpaweather.com and nynjpaweather on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, and LinkedIn. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there.